Money laundering through trading card game transactions has always been a fascinating topic to me, man, and I really want to just talk about it, have a little discussion here today about how this in theory would work. Before anybody gets alarmed, I do not know about any sort of dealings like this. I do not advise you to do anything of the sort. I'm just a smooth brain normal guy in a room just poking at the subject because it's just really cool, man. It's just really fascinating how people can, diverge the system and go through these avenues and I don't really know how it works, but I want to talk about it and I want to see if anybody has any, messages to me and see if they know anything of the sort cuz it's really cool. And yeah, I will bad stuff is not cool, but just the act of diverting a system and getting around stuff is the cool part to me, man. And I don't advise you to do anything of the sort. Please pay your taxes and be upright in everything in the world, la di da, sunshine and rainbows and whatnot. But let's go to the dark end, man. Let's let's go to the shadow realm. So for Flesh and Blood, you have cards like, let's say, the Heart of Fandale or any of the Eye of Ophidia cold foil cards. These cards that go from 10,000 to $20,000 a pop. Now, I will start out with an example of money laundering in the like. So let's say, Bronson's an evil scumbag who sells expired Doritos on the dark web, and I make millions of dollars, and the IRS has no idea about my Dorito empire selling expired Doritos. Ha ha ha! And I'm making millions of dollars. I have $2 million in the side of my room. Now, what's the problem here? Well, Bronson can't put in a bank account because that would really like put off a ton of red flags like, hey, how this fucker get all this money? This doesn't make any sense. So what do you have to do? You have to take this $2 million that I have on the side of my room and convert it into sales of some sort in a legitimate way, or convert it in a certain way to make it legitimate. And how do you do that? How do you do that? And that's the big question, man. There's a bunch of different ways to launder money, but I want to talk about Flesh and Blood. Let's talk about like the really expensive cards, man. And when I talk about really expensive cards, here's the crazy part, man. Is that if you think of like the Heart of Fandel or the Eye of Ophidia or any of the big name cards, right? Or Shiana, any of these like really expensive cards. If I have $2 million of shady money, you know how much, how many cold foil cards I could buy? You know how many like crazy collections I could buy for Flesh and Blood? It would be insane. So picture this, Bronson takes that and do you know what $2 million looks like? Do you know what it looks like in the side of my room? It is piled up here. I barely have enough room to be in this video right now. It is just right here. It's just everywhere. $2 million just in $20 bills. It's everywhere. So think about the volume. Now, if you take this money and convert it into Flesh and Blood premium cards, man, I'm talking about the Shianas, I'm talking about the old big cold foil cards. You convert it into a very small stack of cards that's worth a shitload of money. And by doing so, you not only convert it from a volume standpoint into something that's like compact that could fit in a frickin' like briefcase, but you also make it very inconspicuous. If let's say you wanted to go through the airport and you had $2 million in big duffel bags, do you think the police at the airport would really let you go through and get on that plane? I think they'd have a couple questions like, hey, buddy, I don't think this is really smart for you to go to Argentina with all that cash. What's happening here? But if you had a bunch of trading cards and you build them in decks, do you think the police at the airport are really going to care? You think they're going to give a shit? They'll be like, oh, this guy is a nerd. He likes trading card games. Proceed, because even though you know, oh wow, he has like 50 Heart of Fandales cold foil. That's a shitload of money. Even though you know that, even though I know that, I don't think a lot of people out there know what these cards are worth. So I'm telling you, the money laundering in that aspect of trading something that's of physical volume into cards, and then after that, once you have it in card form, you could really sell it for a profit. And then when you sell it for a profit, you just put it on your taxes like, oh, Yes, I did buy all those Welcome to Wrath booster boxes. And yes, I did pay cash for all those Welcome to Wrath booster boxes. And I got so lucky. I pulled so many hearts of Fandels, or I made all these great trades and whatnot and the like. You can say all these things and you can move that money from Florida to Spain to Portugal to anywhere around the world to Australia. You can move it. So I take my $2 million. I meet some other people in Florida, and I just pay them a shitload of money for all their collection of Flesh and Blood into the cold foil realm, into a very small bundle, into a briefcase. I take that money, I go to Australia, I sell all my cold foil cards. I say that I'm the luckiest motherfucker person in the world, and I made all this money. and and from that, when I'm in Australia, I take my money and I can say, hey, I earned this legitimately. I will pay my taxes, whatever have you, and that's good. And people can look into your background, and things can happen that way. And ultimately, you may be caught that way. Maybe that isn't the perfect system. If it is, then you know, then maybe people are doing it. But I don't know what the perfect system is. I just know what comes into that realm, and that's the fascinating part of this, man. And what makes you think, right? Let's take a break on this money laundering topic. I just want to say that what does this do to the secondary market for Flesh and Blood or for any trading card game? If this activity exists where people are taking their illegal money and converting it into trading cards, and then they're either keeping it long term or divvying up some way, how much effect does that have on the trading card game industry as a whole? Because when you are a shady ass person, usually money laundering fees are like 50% or 40% or probably be even higher. I'm probably smooth brained here. I know money laundering costs a lot of money in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So I'm telling you, man, it's probably pretty freaking high. So if you take this money and put it in collectibles and those collectibles appreciate, or even if they stay stable, I mean, your money laundering expenses are very low. They might be like, I don't know, 20% or lower. That's very low for any type of money laundering activity that I would imagine. I don't do it, but I'm telling you is that it's interesting that way. And what's also good about it is it's low key, it's under the radar. Like, who is gonna really understand this stuff? Not that many people. Maybe there's some nerdy ass motherfucker at the IRS who's gonna understand it. Maybe he's gonna understand what someone's doing and how money is being, transacted upon. But I'm telling you, if I have a Doritos empire of expired Doritos that I'm selling and I have my $2 million and I meet somebody in person and give them 100 grand for their collection in cash, they have the cash now. I have their cards. Money's gone. There's no money trail there. It is just it's like nothing happened. It's like I always own this card, and that person always had the $100,000. I mean, they can say I gave this to Bronson, but there's no camera, there's no anything that is setting you up to really understand what is going on here, and that's the key. It's there's no trail of money. No money went through the PayPal's. No money went through anything. It's just all cash transaction for paper for cardboard, and that's really fascinating to me. But all in all, are a lot of these spikes in Flesh and Blood or any other trading card game out there, are they resulting around people who just want to move a bunch of cash, move cash in big transactions and get it off of them and onto someone else so they can like legitimize their earnings? You don't know. And when there are people, think about it. Think about what $2 million could buy in the Flesh and Blood realm. It would be just insane. You could buy so many cards. And I mean, you can convert. Let's say the Heart of Fandel is worth what, $50,000? Or let's say it's getting there. So you could buy 20 Heart of Fandels for $1 million. You can buy 40 for 2 million if I did my math right. 40 Heart of Fandels is a stack of this. This is $2 million worth of trading cards if you buy all the Heart of Fandels at market price in person cash. And that's crazy. That's crazy to me. It's just crazy how you can convert something this large into something just so small. And you could just transport it anywhere you want around the globe. Nobody really would probably flag you down for it. There might be those one-off moments where someone will catch you, but ultimately, like, if you have like a deck box and you have all those cards in it, I don't think anyone would be the wiser to what you're doing. And that's just so cool. I mean, it's so cool to me in a James Bond-esque like way of circumventing the system like I said earlier, but it really makes me think of what other types of money laundering or shady shit happens in the flesh and blood realm. What other type of thing happens to where people are buying the trading cards not because they think they, like the game, or they could like the game, but not because they want to play with the cards, and not because they want to invest in the cards. But no, 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 because they think of it as a really great avenue of moving money and transferring assets in a certain way. And when you have these certain ways where it's a conduit of transfer of wealth, it's just a huge other piece of the ball game that no one ever sees. We're only seeing like the tip of the iceberg with every other like investor type person or collector, but there's a huge underbelly that makes up the whole rest of the people paying for these cards. And I'm kind of curious. I would like to see like people online saying, "Hey, I just want to pay cash. I'll pay you cash. I'll fly out wherever you are, and I'll pay you cash money for your collection." That's that's kind of the people who I would imagine are doing this kind of thing. And I would imagine that regardless of anything, they want the higher end cards. Anything that is very, very high end, the cold foils, for instance, the legendary cold foils, anything that has a very limited quantity because it can only go up and it will always retain value because there's just not as many out there. There's scarcity. And it could mean that only the shady people are buying these from each other and they don't really care about the price because whatever the price is, it's cheaper than the normal rate for their normal money laundering activities. So they don't really care about losing or gaining money. That's the key here. Because when you're an investor, you care about that. You're like, man, I have to look at my ROI, my return on my investments. I need to look at my rates of return over years and times. But people who are like doing shady stuff, they just want to make their money clean. They just want to transfer their money in a certain way to get, dirty money into clean money. And they want to do it in a most way to where they don't get their, foot caught in the IRS trap. And again, I just want to I just want to cover my ass and say I don't condone it. I think it's really stupid. I think people who are doing this are, they're going to get caught eventually, and I don't advise anything in this video. This is just a discussion. It's just me talking and just ranting on the subject because I think it's fascinating. And I would really like to, I'd like to meet somebody who does some sort of thing like this. I wouldn't, well, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't want to be compromised in that way. I don't think I would want to be that, but I would definitely like to hear examples of it, of something that's happened like very far in the past, so where it's, it doesn't affect anything in the current realm because, this is something that isn't talked about on a daily basis. This isn't talked about regularly. And I think the reason why is because if people are doing it, they don't want to talk about it, and everyone else is none the wiser. And if the card prices keep going up, they don't really give a shit. They think, well, it's because of scarcity. They're there, and to a point, flesh and blood cards are scarce. Flesh and blood cards are very collectible and highly sought after, but I definitely think that there's more of a back end realm, and maybe not even money laundering. Maybe there's other sorts of m- you know other than just laundering and making your money from dirty to clean. I think there's a other aspect of, if you're going through some sort of a marital dispute, some sort of divorce. Well, if you buy a bunch of trading cards, you could probably say, well, that was an expense. Look at me. I opened all these boxes and I didn't get anything. But in reality, you could keep all the like cold foil Heart of Fandales and all the crazy ass shit in like a really legit like deck box, so you could hold like, $2.5 million. That's what I'm saying here, guys. You can hold like $2.5 million in this. and and no one is the wiser. And if you're going through a marital dispute, you just buy all these expensive cards and say, "Oh well, I blew it on these boxes," when in reality you have it all tucked away somewhere safe. And in that realm, it's another avenue for money transferring and hiding money in a way. It makes you think. Makes you think deep. What kind of activities are going on in the back end, and is that why a lot of these high end cards really aren't seen on the open market? How many of the cards like this are tied up, and then how many transactions are done low key where we don't see it online, we don't see it on eBay, we don't see it anywhere. We see like 20 Heart of Fandale sell for, I don't know how many, how much money for like $1 million in cash. Like, how many of those deals exist out there in the world that we just don't know about? Because it's very easy to think that everything is eBay transaction sales. You just hit the completed button. You're like, oh, look, I found all the completed listings for this card. But no, dude, that is no. There's a big market on the underbelly of the secondary market for Flesh and Blood that has money laundering, has money transferring, has money. A lot of shady stuff is happening. And I'm very smooth brained. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I know it exists. It's like I'm a Sasquatch hunter. I know he exists. I'm doing my little Sasquatch call right now. I'm like, I have evidence of how he could exist and where he would live and what berries he would eat, but I have not seen the Sasquatch. I don't I don't know of him. Like, I don't know that shady shit is happening. I just have a very high feeling that it does, and I can definitely see on paper how it can exist and why people would be very interested in this lucrative, opportunity of trading cards. Because, ultimately, we're very, very simplistic as human beings, and we think of things in our terms and our realms, and we don't really think of the general public. Like you and I, we know what a Heart of Fandale is. We know what these Shianas or these crazy like Galaxy Black Cold Foil alternate art. We know these things. But if you go to the supermarket and you ask people constantly, like poll like 10 different people and ask them what they think about Flesh and Blood Monarch, they're gonna they're gonna think you're a freaking alien from another planet. Like they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? I have no idea like we're so encompassed. So when you have these situations where, there's otherworldly transactions, people are going to manipulate other systems with Flesh and Blood, with MTG, with Pokemon, with any of those other big name things, because it's money. Money is being traded for a commodity. And when the commodity is like a little trading card, literally, when a this by this space, right? When this can be worth $50,000 to $40,000, that's when people's ears pierce or perk up. That's when people get interested. That's when other people on the shady thing behind the corner. That's when they want in. They want to understand how this works, and they want to utilize it for their methods. And, beyond the things that I've listed today, I'm sure there's other things that people have figured out, and people buy these cards for other reasons other than investing, collecting, or playing. There's other different avenues of money transfer. I'm telling you, man. And it's just, it's scary, but also very, very cool to me. And I really do think that it has an effect. And I'm going to say at the end, I think it does have a big effect on the secondary market of Flesh and Blood. I think that there's individuals out there who just have a lot of wealth and can do whatever the fuck they want. But I do think that it does serve a purpose to a lot of people's like higher end goals. And when you think about it, when people have millions of dollars to slosh around, flesh and blood is cheap. This is like this is pennies. And when these prices go higher and higher and higher, you got to think to yourself, it only serves these people better. Because that means instead of having a stack of this, you can whittle it down to this. And you can transfer more money through smaller volumes of trading cards and the likes. And yeah, man, it's very, very fascinating. And yeah, just wanted to have a discussion today about this topic of money laundering, money transferring with flesh and blood, and all TCGs. Let me know if you have any uh, thoughts or opinions or old examples that can't get anybody in trouble because I really love this topic and I hope that I hope I understand more about it in the future in a non-compromising way. Thanks for watching. Bye.